And we're very happy to be able to offer this to you at this very momentous time in our on our fragile planet here. That we're in a really unusual moment, both with the coronavirus and now with the upheaval around protests about race and police brutality. There's a lot happening, and so much of it needs to happen on Zoom, which for a time of coming together in a new way is may seem to be a problem.
And at the same time, it seems that something that changed, and maybe changed for good through the COVID crisis, that this new way of coming together on Zoom or other online platform is a way that we also are just discovering right now. In fact, discovering as a species, because Elizabeth and I, we were using this platform for quite some years now, but with the COVID crisis, there's an explosion of online meetings and they won't go away. Mm-hmm. And this is a way of meeting that, in fact, it has limitations. It's not the same like a meeting physically in person, but it also has tremendous advantages. And we, as humanity, will have to learn how to use these new places to meet. And to meet in a way that we also can appreciate our humanity, our real heart-to-heart connections. And part why we want to offer this course, because from our experience, much more is possible than it seems at the first glance to me in this way. And we want to share our experience and share our thoughts, how there are meetings possible that are really deep, alive, real, human to human. And we want to just investigate together how we can use this for coming together on a global scale in this particular time where we need more than ever to come together on a global scale. And let's use this new platform. Let's use these new possibilities to find new ways of coming together.
And we wanted to present this particularly to those of us who are trying to work or have been working deeply and closely with other human beings, either in a spiritual context or consulting or counseling, because we noticed when this started, when the social distancing started, that for many people that we knew, all of a sudden their entire livelihood disappeared because there weren't face-to-face meetings. And it's like, what do you do then? How do you live? I mean, it was a very urgent situation it is an urgent situation for many of us. And then feeling like, how do I, from behind this screen, meet with the people that I need to meet with in the way that I'm used to in making connection with people? And it's like, if you can't do that, then I don't have this isn't my work. So we felt that it was really important to empower particularly this group of human beings who are trying to work at a deeper level.
And also to bring your particular skills, because all of you, I assume, have a lot of skills how to work with people in the way you're used to in this new environment, and to see how many of the skills that you're used to can be translated to this new medium of Zoom, and how it is possible to overcome also the hesitations that we all have to go to technique, because usually it's the tech people who love to go on tech platforms, and it's the people who love humans who have hesitations to go there. But we have to mix these two ways, because one way to see it, we have to bring our humanity into the tech world. And in fact, you are particularly needed because you have something that people which are used to the tech world usually don't have as an expertise. So to bring your expertise to proliferate on the online world is something that is also part of our mission.
And this seems to be in human history a process that in some ways we often invent the technology and then bring our humanity to it, and develop our capacity to be aware. For example, when books were first became more available, the capacity to read and not read aloud, because our cultures were oral cultures before they became book cultures. And in the transition from oral culture to book, humans didn't know how to, couldn't manage to hold the words that they were reading in their minds. That took a long time to develop. So in some ways we've got a new possibility for learning here. How do we infuse this distance here with human warmth, with human care, with the best parts of who we are? And just like we now can read a book and you feel the consciousness of the person behind the writing. You feel their worldview, their position, their attitudes, their warmth. We want to bring that to this context. And even just right now, just look. Here we are in a way that it would have cost so much money to bring us together from around the world the way we are right now, to be able to meet. And the need for our connecting globally is more and more urgent. And this is a way that we can do that without the exorbitant cost of trying, both environmentally and also in terms of out of pocket, coming together.
So this is not a Zoom tech course. Our expertise, although we are familiar with Zoom, the particular expertise that we want to share is not the technological tricks with Zoom. It's more how we can use this for real human connections. But still, we would like to start with some practical Zoom features for you, so that you feel more familiar dealing with these sessions. In case you are not familiar yet, by now many people got used to Zoom. So one thing, we just put Elizabeth and myself on a big screen, but we would suggest that most of the time you go on the upper right corner and go to, there are two different options that you have to see the screen. One is called Speaker View, the other is called Gallery View. And we would suggest that most of the time you go to Gallery View, and when you go there, you will see that you not just see Elizabeth and my face, you see a whole screen full of faces.
A human quilt.
A human quilt. And it's not all of us, because we are more than 80 people right now. And so if you can go also from screen 1 to screen 3 to see people.
And that is on the right-hand side. There's a blue arrow that allows you to click and move to see the other people in the session.
And also we will unlock your microphones, which I have to do right now for 1 second.
And now you can hear background noise.
And now I muted you all again, but I muted it in a way that you can unmute yourself when you will talk. And the way you do that, on the lower left corner of your screen, you see a microphone symbol and a mute sign. And when you click on that, it right now should have, it should be outcrossed. When you click on it, you can unmute yourself and you can mute yourself again. We would ask you to stay muted all the time you're not talking. Unmute yourself when you talk, and mute yourself when you don't talk, because with so many people online, this is the only way to secure that we don't have too many background noises. Also, we are recording this. If you feel uncomfortable to be recorded, we would suggest you to not be on camera, but otherwise we would really recommend to be on camera, to be able to see each other, and you see also the camera symbol on the lower left, and here you can go on camera and off camera as you like.
And one thing is, we will be doing a lot of breakout groups and a lot of small group work, and during those sessions, there's no recording. So if you want to be off camera in this forum, and you won't be on camera when you're working with other people. And what else? There's a chat room where you can send chat messages. You can let us know if there's something that you can't hear us, or something's happening. But we recommend that you not use the chat during the sessions, because it creates a whole side attention, one that we can't pay attention to and be with you, and it takes you away from being present to the whole collective that we're trying to work with.
So in fact, at some points we will also take off the chat function when we feel that it's very important to not have too many side conversations going on, when we feel there's too much side conversation. Because in fact, when we are so many people and we chat to everyone, it's hard to focus on the main conversation. And part of what we really try to develop here is a sensitivity for the subtlety of meeting without too many distractions. So sometimes we will take off the chat function in order to secure that, but often we will also have the chat function. There was also one chat question right now. If we will be always in the same breakout groups, no, we won't. Sometimes we will have them twice in a row to have some stability. Quite often we will change. We'll change them also in size. They will be bigger and smaller groups. So you will mix with quite some people. Part of the beauty of these Zoom meetings is to be all of a sudden in an intimate situation with people that you just haven't seen before, and maybe in a different country, maybe in a different continent. And we are somehow with the camera in each other's living space. And that's part of the beauty of doing these meetings, to really also have these intimate encounters.
Yeah, it's actually it's actually quite. We are in each other's homes, or in each other's life spaces in this context, and realizing that that's part of the intimacy that we're sharing. We're not meeting in a neutral space. We're meeting in spaces that we belong to, and we're sharing that with each other. That is something important to keep in mind, both as a facilitator, when you're facilitating a space like this, to be thinking about what do you want the people that you're working with to see, what would be useful, what would be aesthetically pleasing, beautiful, what would be, seeing a rumpled bed behind you is probably not what one wants, but to realize that one, in doing this, one is bringing part of one's culture into view also, and that's also part of the intimacy and part of the beauty of the interaction.
Part of what we have to learn with these online meetings, that we are mixing different spaces. Because usually when we come to a meeting, when we go somewhere, we know we go somewhere, and quite often we also dress up. We want to be a pleasant appearance. And usually when we are at home, we are more casual with ourselves. So here we are in our office or at home, but at the same time, we are in a big public space with 80 other people. And we have to learn how to come together also in a respectful way, like we would do when we come to a meeting, where we come usually in a way where we also take care how we appear, because out of respect for each other. And the same applies in these online meetings. It applies in a different way. For example, there's something that you don't have to think about when you come to a physical meeting, which is the lighting. But to be able that we see each other, so that you have your computer set up in a way where your face is not just a shadow with the light behind, but that people see your bright face, is something that makes a difference of being with each other. There's also one very very particular difference, because usually when we go and meet, but here we stay and meet, which means we stay in the place where we are and we share our private space with each other. So in some way, there's an intimacy in these online meetings that we don't have when we have other meetings, because we are not in other places. We are with our place, with each other. We share also our places. And just to be aware, this is a new culture that we have to learn how to do this, how to be with each other, with the room I'm in, with the space I'm in a way that we share the space in the way we want to share it.
That brings us to another point, which is that because we're in all these different spaces, and we're not usually when we have a counseling session or a service that we're offering, or doing a consultancy with a group of people, we go someplace and we cross a threshold into that context. We cross a threshold and we're in the seminar room. We're in the retreat center. We're in a place that tells everyone, we don't even think about this, that tells everyone this is what we're doing and this is what we're here for. It's like you walk into a church. You know what there's a shift in your inner attitude as you move into that space. The different physical context that we move through creates slight differences in our how we approach it, in our awareness. Here we don't have any of those external markings. You're where you were probably a half an hour ago. Maybe you moved to set up your computer, but you're basically in your same space. So to create this collective space, we need to bring our attention and our intention together. It is held by our consciousness. It's not held by a physical location. And that is, you could say in a certain way, a disadvantage, but it's also an advantage. And this is part of what we want to move into speaking about. There is a potential in this space and in this way of coming together that is deeply related to consciousness, to our awareness, that opens up a different potential in our coming together.
In fact, that's a big part of what we want to share all these 4 days, that the disadvantage and the advantage of online meetings go hand in hand. Because it's true, as Elizabeth was describing, when we have physical meetings, going to places are always forms of initiation. When you're in a church, because you move your body in a church, you're initiated to the space of a church. When you're in a business meeting, you sit down at the conference table, you're initiated to a business meeting. You're not even aware, but just the moving of your body and coming together is an initiation that sets your consciousness, because you do that. That's our habits. And we're doing this automatically. But when you're sitting at a business table, you know that you're sitting at a business table. When you're in a church, you know you're in a church and you're in a different mood. you're in a different awareness, you're in a different consciousness. We don't have this outer movements, but we are right now in a different setting. You are not on your own at your computer anymore. You are with other people, meeting in a big meeting. So we have to do this in inner movements. We have to do this only with our intention and our attention. The good thing, the advantage of this disadvantage is that we learn that this is true anyway. Because if we are in a business meeting and we are kind of absent, it doesn't help at all that we have moved our body there, and we know how this is just the case that people are meeting, but basically inwardly they are absent. So we have to train the skill that our real meeting is always an inner meeting, where we intentionally choose to meet. Because this is even more important in online meetings, we also train this muscle of our intention and attention to really come together.
I'd like to draw our attention to us right now, to really take a look at this moment, at who we are together with, to see that, as Thomas often says these days, to call this a virtual meeting is a misnomer. It's not true. I'm not virtual, and neither are you. We are actually really here. We are really here. And there's a mystery to this. Because how can we all be present, which we are, here, alive, with each other, and also at the same time be spread all over the earth?
And also just be aware the difference it makes when Elizabeth says that we are really meeting here. To allow, to acknowledge the realness of this meeting changes the way we are with each other. When we just deeply acknowledge you're real, I'm real, the others are real, and we are really meeting, how this acknowledgement changes the way we meet.
So just take a moment and be really here. And contemplate just the actual mystery of our being together. And that's part of what is interesting about this space, this Zoom technology, this coming together on video, that we're in a place of mystery because we are simultaneously present across the globe. And we are together across great distances, and yet we are all here, wherever here is. And at the same time, we are collectively, as humanity, in a place of grave uncertainty, of extraordinary upheaval and change. And we are in a space of collectively of not knowing. We don't know really what this coronavirus is, how it works. Researchers are frantically trying to figure out what is this? How does it work? Is it really dangerous? Is it not? There's uncertainty at an existential level that is rippling across the globe. That uncertainty, that not knowing, is actually a very powerful place of transformation. We now have the waves of unrest and upheaval around the murder of George Floyd that is bringing to human consciousness and conscience an awareness of the injustice that also has been revealed by the coronavirus. We're at a point of profound change, and we don't know what will happen next.
There's a lot of talk about what we call global consciousness, because we are growing together as a global community. And everything from the crisis that we're in, they are global crises. There's some particular experience in these online meetings that also is worth to contemplate. Because you will experience when you do online meetings the likelihood that you don't just meet people from your own town or your own country or your own continent is just very high. All of a sudden, you will be with people you most likely would not be together with otherwise, because it would not have been as easy to come together as right now. So somehow, by that, human communication is changing right now, because it's so much easier to meet globally. And also, when we come together in one physical place, this one physical place is holding us and bringing us together, but we're also just in one place on this globe. There's something particular to contemplate, that we are sitting right now and meeting, but we are sitting in different places, different countries, maybe different continents. And this brings a form of consciousness that we did not have before, in a very intuitive, not theoretical way, that we are spanning the globe. As we are sitting here, we are consciousness points spread around the globe, being connected to each other in this here-ness. So there's a visceral experience of global consciousness that was not accessible before, just because it is. We are sitting around the globe, being sentient beings, being able to connect to each other, and we are connecting the different places where we are right now at the same time. It's as we see your background, we are also connected to your house, your city, your country, your landscape. There is a very mysterious connection of our global reality that is also new. And that is something that is of a new potential that we just have to find out right now where this leads us, because it was not accessible to us before. And this is something that people with deep consciousness and awareness are much more aware than people who have just a tech understanding of what a Zoom meeting could be. But just to be aware that we are also in that sense entering different spaces of togetherness.
And this is also an unknown, or it's a new context, a new context of consciousness. I mean, just right now, to realize that we are spread in this way, we are connected by this crisis, and we are in a space. The unknownness of this space, the newness of it, creates an opening for something new to happen, for transformation and change to happen. And that's why there's an enormous fertility, aliveness here, an enormous potential, because we don't already know and have everything figured out. And that is in when one is working with transformation of other human beings, or consciousness, or awareness, or businesses. You know that from your work that you have to that we have to let go of what we already know in order to allow something new to emerge. And that is this context of Zoom, because of its globality, and because of we can't relate in the ways that we're used to. It draws our attention to something more subtle, and that is the truth of human presence, the reality of human presence. And we'd like to do a first exercise where we're going to put you in pairs. So, and in those pairs, we would like you to experience the other person's presence through the screen. We want you to pierce this interface with your presence. And what that means is, wait just a second. I think we need 40. What that means is we want you to when you will get a little pop-up window that will invite you to a breakout group, and you click on that, and then you will magically be put with another human being. And in that, in being with another, and maybe you might have another human being, so there may be 3 of you. Just spend the first minute looking at each other in silence. Just be with each other in curiosity, in interest, in care. Just be with the other person. And then after that, and we'll send you a message that will say, now introduce yourself. So then introduce yourself to each other and say briefly why you're here.
So this whole exercise will
take about 5 minutes maybe.
And you will see a pop-up window where you just have to say yes to enter to the breakout room. And then you will automatically end up with 1 or 2 other persons, most of you with 1 person. And then just start with seeing each other.
Being present.
And being with just 1 other on screen makes it also much easier to be aware of the realness of the meeting, the realness of the other. Something that's much more difficult on a big screen with many people is to forget technology and just let technology be secondary and see through the screen, not on the screen, but through the screen, and discover the other, and discover that you see and discover that you are seen. And that's this is what creates relationship, even if you are on a computer.
And you might want to move up so that you're close enough to really have a face-to-face encounter. And or some of you are already close, but I think that's it. Yeah.
So
have a lovely time.
Yeah. Thank you. So we still wait a couple of seconds until everyone has come back from the groups. I see some smiles on their face. That's a good sign. So it's beautiful to meet each other. Okay, seems that everyone is back.
Yeah, I know that this is the being present to another person in that at that degree of intimacy, actually, in some cultures is slightly taboo. So I hope that this
was okay.
This was all right. Because yeah, there are a lot of cultures where making eye contact is considered inappropriate with strangers. But I'm wondering what your experience was like. What you can unmute yourself and join the conversation.
Or raise your hand.
Yeah, Massimo.
Massimo.
Thank you. There were two things that came to me straight away. Three things. One was the first time my partner David spoke, something for me, something opened up, something, it wasn't just, it kind of released the tension in me, I think, a little bit. Even though I like to think I'm comfortable just looking at people, but I didn't, yeah, something happened. And my thoughts are going over what that might be, but leave that aside. The other thing is we were put in a room with three, and then one of the people were taken away. And I had almost a physical, strong emotional reaction to that. It was like, there was no warning. She was snatched away. So Maggie, we missed you. There was a third thing, but that's right. The third thing was when David leant forward to unmute his sound. I really felt him coming towards me. It was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Peter Paul. The beauty was Maggie was with me. So I snatched Maggie away and we had a great conversation. It was beautiful. It was good. It was very nice. Yeah. Sitting there for a minute is amazing. It's amazing. Just looking into the beautiful brown eyes of Maggie. Yeah. You immediately felt connection.
Yeah. One question, Peter, and to all of you. This one-on-one exercise, I always feel makes so clear how technology is secondary.
Or can be.
Or can be secondary. How because all of a sudden I'm exposed to another human being. The fact that we meet on computer doesn't really matter so much. Of course, it's different than meeting the physical, but it's not the main event.
No.
And this is something that also is important when we are together, 80 of us. There's some kind of what we sometimes call a hypnosis of technology, that we are not really looking through the screen, we're looking on the screen, and we are not really aware, hey, Peter, it's you, nice to meet you. I'm looking on my screen and see this Peter name underneath, and I kind of objectify you. And to go beyond that, and as we would meet physically, just be aware of your presence, is something that is an inward movement that can be consciously supported by our intention, and allows the quality of the change online to change dramatically. And in these one-on-one situations, it's because we're just pulled into each other usually in this one-on-one situation. It's so obvious how this is possible, even in a technological place like Zoom and internet. In the end, it's human to human.
And you'll see over these four days that we'll be together, or this that over and over again, this is an awareness practice. This is a consciousness practice. This is really about bringing all that we know about human relationship, human consciousness, our awareness to bear in this new technological situation. And and because we don't have the physical contact, we don't have all the cues that we're used to and not even aware of. You know, how someone's sitting, the warmth of their body, whether or not someone is just the feeling of the tactileness of someone being there, since that's been taken away, what we have left is presence, human presence. And meeting in human presence is a meeting in consciousness itself. And that is a very powerful, a very powerful place for co-creation, for transformation, for human connection. Yuval, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say that what was very strong for me was that Marielle and I had very strong synchronicity. I mean, all the little movements, if I moved my head a little, if I winked or something, it was immediately echoed. And I'm used to breakout rooms, usually in groups of 4, and it doesn't really happen there. But when it's one-on-one, it's much more immediate.
We're starting with dyads, and we're going to build up so that this presence, this connection can that you can learn how to hold it and open it as we get in larger and larger groups. So thank you.
I'd like to add to that, if I may, because when we're in a group, it's like I'm anonymous. Mm-hmm. And when the person appeared in front of me, and just, it felt so extreme because it went from being anonymous to incredibly intimate. Mm-hmm. And just being quiet for so long, it was so aware of 2 souls sitting in the room together. Mm-hmm. And I must tell you, I'm very emotional, but like not sad, just I felt seen, you know. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I became so aware that there's such a reflection on my glasses. I couldn't make eye contact. So I took mine off, and then my partner took her glasses off too, and we could have this connection. And it's really hard online with the anonymity, not being able to have this level of connection. I'm sorry, I can't cry. Stop crying. But I felt really emotional, really meeting someone's energy and their soul in this intimate space of just 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
It's beautiful, Karen.
It's beautiful, Karen.
I also feel related to Karen. For the first minute in silence, me and my partner Katie, just a few second part before we have a smile on our face, and we feel connect immediately. Just before the first word has spoken. So for me, in that silence, when you really look in someone's face, it means a lot. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sally, you had your hand.
Yes, could I say something? I'd just like to say that I really appreciated your introduction, and there was something for me very much about your voices and how they resonated with sincerity and beauty, and how that made me feel at the beginning very emotional and very connected to you both. And then in the exercise, and I was with Margaret, when we could both talk and use our voices, I felt that was really lovely. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say, but and also now having spoken to one other person, I feel more present. And I know, you know, when I've done group work, I always feel after the initial meeting with just one person, I'm more ready to meet the bigger group or 4 or however it goes, that the initial one-to-one is really important to me. But it's really made me aware of, as a therapist, how important your voice is, and the tempo and the vibration, and how that might even be amplified working in this way. And I could really feel that with you too at the beginning. So thank you.
I would like to add to that what you said, Sally. So I loved your introduction, and for me it was that I was together with Lisa, and for me, you created a safe space. So it was that, I don't know, but you created something where from the very beginning, there was a lot of trust. And for me, it was so safe that I could open, have all the connection. And that was, I question myself, is it because we are sharing the same values, or is it about the people, but it was a really great experience.
Great. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
also wanted to share one little observation about getting from a pair back to the bigger group. The first thing I did was scroll through that gallery view to find Julia, who we've been in pair together with, and that square faces were no longer just faces. Like I had my person in there, and that also felt very warm. It's not just any faces. I also have a person there that I really met.
Right.
Thank you.
And no, thank you, Aliona, and also to be aware, just you speak like this also pulls you out of anonymity. You spoke to all of us. Your presence steps into this space. So this is part of the beauty to speak up and to bring yourself in. It makes us aware of each other in this beautiful way. Because part of the exercise that we would like to introduce you is to see how we can break through this anonymity of computer and be aware that as in other life, we can meet here. And part of the challenge in online meetings is because we are usually in our private space, can be our office space or a private space. We are used to stay in the private space. But what we have to do inwardly is we have to open up and somehow leave the privacy of our private space behind. Really open the door to the others. Because otherwise we don't leave our privacy. We don't allow it to be pulled into relationship and for ourselves and the people we work with to support each other, to open the door inwardly and step into this space of relationship and exchange is what makes a meeting happen. Because otherwise it's just kind of something happening on the screen, but we have to walk through the screen, open it up, see the other, and allow ourselves to be seen as you were describing it.
We have to heart through the screen. Actually, I hear that people are having trouble seeing the speakers. On the upper right corner of your computer, does it say speaker view, or does it say gallery view?
It says speaker view.
Yeah.
Can I just butt in? Are you highlighted, Elizabeth and Thomas? I think you are highlighting yourself.
No, we are.
Because we can only see you as speakers.
Okay, did you click on the upper right?
Click on the upper right corner where it says, it should say right now gallery view. Click.
It doesn't make a difference. You are always on when I click speaker.
Yeah, that's true, because you're highlighted.
I think it depends a little bit on the device you have. In some devices, maybe it's not possible, or if
it should be.
Are you using a computer?
It never happened to me before, so this is the first time.
It's probably a setting in the meeting that has been set up. So you might have to go to the setting and change that. Elizabeth and Thomas, it's the setting of the meeting, I think, not individual devices.
I think there's something at your end, Elizabeth and Thomas, where you set it that you're set as us being the speaker, and then when somebody else speaks, it doesn't jump to them.
That's right.
No, some people have gallery view working, so it's not. It's not.
Elizabeth and Thomas. So I think everybody can switch to gallery view. And I think what people are saying is that when we switch to speaker view, the only person that appears big is just you. And that will be, as I think Sonika said, is that's either a setting in your settings before the meeting, or there's also you can also what's it called, spotlight or pin a video.
Yeah, and we're not doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
I know that sometimes in Zoom there's a lag time between speakers, so that if someone speaks briefly, sometimes the last speaker stays there. But
okay.
But let's not get. Did you see the atmosphere change so quickly?
Yeah. So we will look into this for the next session. I think for this session we have to live with this, and if that's the case, I'm sorry, because this is never happened to us before. And my recommendation is to stay with the gallery view. So anyway, to see all of each other, we will see that we can remedy this. And thank you for letting us know.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I return to what you were talking about before?
Yes, please.
The thing I noticed when I went into the breakout pair with my partner, Winona, was that the first thing that I noticed mentally, the first thing I wanted to do was I looked for her breath, and I wanted to bring my breath into. I found it really a great way to find presence with her, was to watch her breath and bring my breath into her breath.
Breathe.
I don't know, it wasn't conscious. I noticed later. I only noticed after about 30 seconds that I was doing it. I don't know if it's because I'm a yoga teacher and I'm trained to do that, or if it's a natural thing to do. I'm just curious how much you've heard other people talk about that.
Never heard anyone say it, so it may have something to do with being a yoga teacher. But what's interesting about that is, so you're very used to working with embodiment, and you're bringing that embodiment here, that awareness of our embodiment, and that can work as a connection point here also.
So I'd like to add to that as well from Hannah, because when we came and met in our duo, I met with Amara.
Just a second, Satya.
Okay.
Just a second. Can
It's
you
okay. It's okay.
unmute yourself again?
Yeah, no problem. And what I was very aware of was we were still both muted. And I really missed hearing the breath. And I was sighing myself, and it's like I could feel, and I felt a real heart connection and presence. But I really missed the hearing, this hearing part. And the breath was very much a part of it. And what I found, I had to come back more into myself and be more present in myself to really connect with Amare.
No, thank you what you're bringing. Thank you what both of you are bringing, because it really leads to something that we find very important to acknowledge for these online meetings, because there's some phenomenon that seems to be very counterintuitive, that this meeting on Zoom are deeply embodied meetings. We are not just meeting here with our eyes, we are not just meeting with our minds. There's a resonance with our breath, there's resonance with our cells. And it is important to acknowledge that, because in the acknowledgement there is also an opening up to this resonance with each other. And to be aware of, which is kind of a miracle, because we are not sitting next to each other physically, that there is an energetic field that really goes into our bodies, where we are in something and our body is responding to our meeting. and to being together. And our sensitivity is always an embodied sensitivity. To be aware of you, to have a sense of you, I only can do with the senses of my body. And of course, there are things we cannot do online. There is no touch, there is no smell, there's limitations. But as you're saying, with sound and in the image and seeing each other, our bodies respond. And to allow to be here embodied with the responses of our body allows us to be in a very alive, embodied way with each other, although we are separate physically many, many thousand miles.
And actually, we'd like to continue. Oh, Sonika, did you want to say something?
If it's all right, we still have the time.
Sure.
Of course.
So I'm just, the moment you said resonance, Thomas, that is what I experienced while sharing the time with Anne. And so it really spoke to me the moment you said resonance. It resonated fully in my body. I can feel that. And just the first minute of silently being present with Anne, it reminded me of another practice that I do, which is called focusing. Mm-hmm. And it is about embodied presence completely. And in that first minute, I felt connected to her first. And then it was a moment where it was like all my attention is with just this one person. That's all. Mm-hmm. And she's all that is there right now, you know. And this is the connection. And that embodiment, that how it felt in my body, I think over a minute, I could sense various things moving through me. And my sense is that was a resonant field that got created between us. It was not just what I was feeling, but also receiving with Anne and creating in that relational space, that resonant relational space. So, in some ways, it reminds me of how, yes, physically we can be together, but in India, and in a lot of places, like we talk about the energy body. Mm-hmm. And the energy body is vast. And it says, where our attention goes, energy flows.
That's right.
And so that is what I experienced in that 1 minute, very beautifully. Thank you so much for bringing me.
Thank you so much, Sonika.
Actually, if you a lot of the lessons or the deeper truths of consciousness are very clear here in this context. You know, that this energy field or that the subtle body is and human consciousness is not separate. It's infinite. So that it's possible to have actual resonance between yourself and another person who may be on the other side of the world. And that is, again, that's a mystery, but it's not a but, it's a mystery, and it's a deep truth that points to the fact that we fundamentally are not separate as human beings.
Because just the simple fact that obviously hearing each other here on screen, we are touched by each other. But what is touched? It makes what you're describing as the energy body is definitely one way of talking about this, because it is, however you call it and however you understand it, what is undeniable, something in us is touched. And to acknowledge that, acknowledge the realness and the aliveness of this meeting in this particular space, and to just allow ourselves to learn how we can work with this in this way is something that is new for all of us, because 5 years ago, this kind of meetings were just not possible. It's a new domain of human relatedness, and it's a new way how we can also touch each other. And that's part of the power of this.
Sorry, but can I just add one more thing? And which is that while meeting in this way is so new, it is also true that since I was a child, I have experienced such a connection that my mother will feel something if it doesn't matter. I can be in another city, another country. It doesn't matter, you know. And I have, as I have grown up, I have experienced that with people I'm close to, connected to, and so on. And so in some way, I feel we all have such an experience already. Only if it's a matter of tapping into that and tuning into it and seeing that it can exist with just about anybody and anything. And that also really opens my heart out. Like, it's just, you know.
Thank you.
Great. Actually, we'd like to move on to an exercise. Can we, is it a burning question comment? Or can we move on to the exercise, Risa?
No, we can move on to the exercise.
Thank you very much. So we, as I said before, we are starting dyads, but we want to expand our capacity. And this is what we're going to be working. We're going to work this muscle of expanding our capacity to be aware at this intimate, deep level with each other. And so we'd like to focus your attention on a very slight difference in your consciousness between what we call the me and the we. So right now, just think about yourself in your me space, in your world of private thoughts and feelings and experience. And then you don't need, you can close your eyes, but you don't need to close your eyes, because we are often in this space with our eyes wide open and sometimes in meetings with each other, this me. And now maybe even lean a little forward and engage with the we that is here. Now, in your own time, toggle back and forth between me and we, between my own space, my own world, my own thoughts, and opening to the we. Explore that a little bit. It's not just simply moving your body back and forth, but it's a recognition. It's a subtle recognition of where one's attention is. Is it in this space, or is it in the collective as a whole?
And just be aware how your inner experience, also your embodied experience, can change when you just focus on this space of yourself, my individuated meanness. And this is a powerful place to be in, because it takes consciousness to hold one's own space and to just be aware of, this is me right now. Me, Thomas. Me, Eva. Me, Satya. Me, Hado. Me, Hedda. Me, Suba. This is me. And just to be aware of your meanness and allow this me space really to be powerful, present to you. And then use the body just as a signifier to lean forward into this we space and open up into the space between us, and see how the experience, also how the embodied experience maybe changes in this leaning forward into each other, and allow yourself to be opened into this we space and the open we space to open up to you. And just be aware how the experience may be different. And when you kind of move forward, move into this we space, and then just using again the body as the signifier, when you move back, move into this me space, and be aware in yourself how maybe you experience changes from one to the other, and how this is really kind of a different way of experiencing the world. This is how it looks from this space where I'm mostly focused on me. This is the space where I'm opening up and allowed to enter this we, and maybe the world looks differently, feels differently, has a different sense in this perspective than in that perspective. Just to allow yourself that maybe there's something of difference to be experienced here.
Okay, now we're gonna break into new breakout groups of 4, and we'd like you to spend a few minutes with each other, moving back and forth in this way, or maybe you don't even need to do that, but going from the me to the we. And speak then together about your experience. What's the difference? What happens between you when you shift from a me focus and my concerns and I'm not sure and whatever to being with each other? What changes? So there'll be 4 to 5 of you in the room, and we will take 15 minutes for this exercise. And yeah, and enjoy.
Groups, and yet now we are being asked to consider putting some things online, and I'm thinking, so how do I get that kind of interaction that can happen in those conversations online? Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think we've been joined by
Yeah.
others.
Nice to meet you, Susan.
You too, Carmen.
I'm sorry for butting in on your conversation. I don't know what happened.
So good.
No, it's okay. We were late arriving, so we ended up doing a little mini session that you've just come in on.
Okay.
All right. Seems we're all back. And I hope the speaker view works now, if you try.
And again, we do recommend that you stay in gallery view, because the people who speak will pop into your view that way also.
Yeah.
With a little yellow around the square that says that they're speaking, that notes that they're speaking. But we'd love to hear from you about your experience. What happened together?
Again, you can raise your hand. You also can do that when you open the participants panel, and you have these icons, and one of the icons says raise hands, and this way we also can see you raising the hand, even if you're not on the first screen, or you also just can unmute yourself.
Yeah, if you unmute yourself and start speaking, you will.
Hilda just raised your hand, so Hilda, please go ahead.
That was beautiful. I think connection is beautiful. I wanted to be in that space, just looking at others and being with others more than I wanted to be in my own space. So I think I was hungry for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and this time of social distancing, that kind of heart connection, or just the presence of another human being, is often hard to feel, which is why I think it's so important that all of us can bring our skills in that kind of connection to this medium, so that our hearts don't shrivel up, so that we can, stay in and develop deep connection. Yeah, thank you.
I want to.
Rosalie?
Yeah.
So what I noticed was that curiosity really allowed for this sort of open sense of connection, and I could experience that when people spoke, that actually not only were their voices and the resonance of their voices inside my body, but also that I could perceive the shifting of my consciousness as their words, as I heard their words, my consciousness was shifting. So it was adapting and changing. And then when you spoke about this toggling thing, one of the things I noticed about that was that it is possible to be in conscious awareness of oneself and in relationship, but also that when there was any sense of that curiosity closed and there was any sense of knowing whether that was about myself or about the other, there was this kind of contraction. You talked about objectification, so it's almost like, oh, closing the other or closing myself. That we space kind of contracted, and that's not necessarily a problem, but it's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalie. It's also important not to objectify the we, but the we becomes something that the me is also in, and the all of the yous are in also in one space.
And Lisa, you rose your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, something that I noticed was that how your introduction into the exercise about the curiosity to dance between the me and the we helped me to not have those, like we had some moments of silence, and I was really able to experience them as beautiful moments, because there was this trust that also if we are kind of like reclining to a me space, there is this intention to still also be in the we space. And yeah, this for me made it possible to experience silence in its beauty. So that, yeah, I'm very grateful for that experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say silence is an international language, isn't it? Because here we're all speaking English, which for many is not their native tongue, but there's also a meeting in silence. Kathy? Okay.
Yes. In our group, we actually remained silent right until the end. And what I noticed was in the beginning, it wasn't clear who was focusing on me and who was focusing on we, but there were moments when it seemed we came into a synchronized, like it was a dance. And then there were moments when we were all dancing in the same steps. And I felt there was a part of me that was wondering, would you tell us when we could speak? And waiting for that. And then I just found myself becoming very curious about the wholeness of the group. And there's something about the medium. So in the Gestalt, we talk about seeing the system with soft eyes, but the medium of 4 images on the screen, there's something about, you feel the vision gets focused. You can look at each person, but to soften one's vision, to be able to take in everyone when one is looking at the screen, including oneself. And that's the thing that's different. Online, you see yourself as well as, whereas when you're sitting in a physical group, you only see the others.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very interesting to see, is it possible to soften one's vision, to take in the whole through this medium? And I don't know, but we got to a point where it certainly felt to me that I entered into a state of consciousness that I don't think I felt before.
Mm-hmm.
In a group situation, in a physical or an online group situation. And it was partly this, that, you know, taking that part of me that wanted to say, you know, they wanted to ask, I'm wondering, are we all wondering the same thing? When do we speak? And just put it aside for a moment. And then take it back and say, does this need to be asked? Does this want to be asked now? So it was wonderful. Thank you.
Great.
I want to connect Kathy because I was with Kathy. So can I, Kathy and Hilda and also Jim. And from the beginning, I thought I didn't understand this practice because I was waiting to speak. And at the end, I understand that it doesn't matter because it's like we decided to be quiet, but my expectation and from at the beginning, it was so unexpected to be, you know, in stillness for 15 minutes. So at the beginning, it's like I didn't know what's going to happen. And I all my hands and my legs were shaking, and it was a little bit embarrassed. I was embarrassed and I started laughing. And it was amazing how when I smile or laugh, all the group was also smiling and laughing. And the resonance was the experience was so strong. I was shocked. It was so strong. I was shocked that my body was shaking and my breath was very heavy. And when there's the laugh came, it was immediately all the group smile and laugh. So the connection was so strong. And then I had a private thought, but I felt like everybody know my private thought. It's like there was no boundaries. It's like I had some private thoughts, and my thoughts make me embarrassed because I felt like anybody know my thoughts, like they're in my head. That was the feeling. So it's like it was so beautiful. I want to take a camera and take a picture of us, but it's like many thoughts like this. And we know sometimes when I'm in Zoom and there is a group, I can take a picture. Nobody sees it. But here now, if I'll take my camera, and I can't do it. So it's like I felt everything was transparent and we can see each other inside. It was very strong, and only for the last 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I started to relax in this stillness and in this quiet, and I understand that we're not going to talk, and it's okay. And it was amazing experience. I really want to say thank you.
Thank you, Amit.
Maureen?
Yeah, quite similar just to Amit in terms of just noticing the body, you know, in it, and moving between the me and the we, and getting a bit self-absorbed in terms of wondering again, like, oh, are we supposed to speak now? And being comfortable for the first minute, and then moving into thinking, well, I would love to hear people's voices, but I don't want to be the first one to speak. And then realizing I'm in my self-absorbed, you know, in me, and then moving back to the we and feeling the tension of the body. I was squeezing my hands tight. And then the other thing was just noticing about, and I know it was probably my projection in terms of like where, and we voiced it in our group, like where our eyes are placed, whether it's on the camera or on the screen. And one of the partners' face was down, so in my mind I felt I was projecting an uncomfortability and that notion of wanting to take care of one another, and then noticing again, being in my own me and then coming back out. So it was just interesting just to notice the me and then notice bringing myself back over and over, trying to bring myself back over. So, yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Manfred.
This was really an amazing experience. So the change between the me and the we was like going from tension to relaxation and back. It's unbelievable because I I never would have believed it, that it's so strong. I was shocked about it in a certain way because it's deep touching, and on the other hand, it's I can't believe it. That is such a big difference. I know it intellectually, I know it, but this experience is changing. It is changing because I was in it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Manfred, because as you were hinting, the intellectual knowing is not the knowing. And to be aware of this difference allows us also to lean into this we space, which means to really leave this me space behind. And it's not leaving me behind because I'm part of this we space, but to open up and to be aware that we can do this in a very conscious way in any kind of connection, but particular also in an online meeting like this. And I'm very grateful for you describing the strength of this exercise, because it matches also my experience. It is always surprising how this space opens up in a very tangible physical strength. And to allow this dynamic to open up really opens up the potential of these we spaces that we create online. And that's why we really want you also to exercise and experiment with this, because to the degree in your own work that you can help people to open up to this, the dynamic changes and a complete different potential opens up what's happening in these spaces. And then on-life aliveness, for our understanding, becomes online aliveness.
And we have two hands still up, Hedda and Stephen. And we'd like to take a break now, and we'll start with you when we come back. Oh, and there's also one other thing technically that I'd like to mention. And that is, if you go to the upper right corner of your unique square, you will see a few dots. If you press those dots, there's an option that you get that says hide self view.
It's the lowest.
It's at the bottom of the drop-down menu.
So if you feel irritated by seeing yourself in the mirror all the time, this is a way how to get rid of the mirror.
Yeah, because it can be very distracting, which is fascinating, isn't it? It's like, who's that's saying the things that I'm saying? So that keeps the tendency towards that magnetic attraction. It eliminates that temptation and allows you then just to focus more on being with the others. So we're going to take a break until a quarter after the hour, and for those of you in India, it's a quarter to the next hour, that we recommend that you turn away from your screen, that you can just close your camera. You don't need to turn it off, but to take this time. One of the things that's important about Zoom is there's a lot of awareness that we're bringing to this, a lot of consciousness, a lot of energy, deep energy that we're bringing to it, and to give yourself space away from it. And anytime you're designing a meeting, we'll talk about this more later, to make sure you put a lot of spaces in so that people have a chance to step outside and smell the fresh air, to touch a tree, to notice that there is a subtle aliveness that we're surrounded by all the time in nature. So take a moment to do that, have some tea, and then we'll come back in a half an hour, about a half an hour. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. See you in half an hour.
Mm. I hope you had a nice break. Here it's kind of cold and rainy, so wasn't a moment to go outside much. Let's continue with Hedda and Stephen.
So Hedda, if you're
still here and still have a question,
then
Here, I'm here.
yes.
Okay, I'm here also in video.
There we go.
Yeah, to me, it's very fascinating and important to what is that experience of we, and what hinders it, what makes it impossible or that difficult. So my experience, when we only had the gallery view, I don't see very well. These pictures to me are quite meaningless. And I realized after my frustration that I really see you in this formation of 25 little pictures. I see you flat as cardboards. It's really just like no depth, no beingness. And then when I see a bigger picture, it's almost like the other comes to life for me because I see the details. And somehow, I don't know whether seeing, isn't that the first step to really seeing the other? First with the eyes, but then also with the inner mind is the first movement towards the we space. And when we were then the four of us, it was a great relief for me. And to really have somebody opposite me and to enter into that space. But then there was it was not a difficulty, but I found it easier to connect to from I to you, to one other person, the person who's speaking or the person I was looking at. But to have that we space of the four of us, and I think Kathy said that, to soften the eyes. It's something to do with not focusing on the precision focus, but really to widen. But I'd be interested in knowing more about that and about your teaching, about what really is the result, the sensations, the experience of the we space. We may have somebody shared about it earlier, but what is it really? I mean,
no, thank you.
The need to, what do I see? What do I go into when I open up to first one other, this I and thou, and then I and we. And just the last, I also felt quite amazing that I see myself, that I am included when I don't get too self-focused on my picture. Then I can see that I am part of the group. I am in the four. There is already the we on the screen. So.
No, thank you, Hedda. In fact, you just described it very well, and this is also part of the reason why we designed it this way, the way we designed it, because this is part of the challenge, but also part of the potential of doing this online. it is a challenge to really not objectify each other, particularly when we're in a big group like we are right now. This is the reason why we started with this one-on-one exercise. Because on this one-on-one exercise, as you described it, it's much easier to, let's say, to be pulled into each other. Because I see you full screen, I'm aware, I see your eyes, I'm aware of your, and that allows me to let myself be pulled into relationship. And it's a little more challenging with 4, but it's still very different between 4 and 80. It's very different. And what you are saying about the eye sense, I would agree, but I also would suggest to experiment with something like as an inner eye, and to be aware of that there is an inner awareness and an inner experience of our relationship, that even if you close your eyes right now, and even if I don't talk right now, although I do talk, there's an awareness that we share space together. There's an inner awareness of this. And I don't even need to see you in order to kind of sense that this is a space that we are holding together. There's a little exercise that we sometimes do when there's a deep awareness of the shared space, maybe a shared space of 2 or 20 or 80 through the internet, and we're just aware of each other, and we say, even if the internet would go out this moment, basically we lose all connection, and there's just a flat screen, black screen. If I look into my inner experience, that the relationship that we're having doesn't fall away right away. It will fade. But there's something still alive because we share this space together. There is something that is supported by technology, but it's only supported. The real connection is a human connection, it's a connection in consciousness. And to work this is something that takes some exercise, as we try to also provide here, and provide with the one-on-one, and provide with this exercise to see there's this me space where I am aware of myself, but I can lean into relationship, and with an inner awareness, an inner eye, an inner ear, an inner sense, I can be aware that there's something that's bigger than me, and I can relate to this bigger than me. Because to the degree that we can do that, these online gatherings become real. They become not just things on the screen. You, Heather, become real for me in this. And Risa, Peter, Mariette, Amit, Anne, we all become real for each other in some way. But it needs an inner work to open up this realness between us. And to the degree that it is possible, the aliveness becomes real between us.
And as to, in many ways, what one pays attention to in the we is not the individuals. It is actually you are all pointing to things that are quite perfect for understanding this. That it is a more global, open field of attention, in which one is you are there, one is there, and also it is something that is an interbeing. It's between each of us as beings. So it's not really a focus on the you and you and you and you, and we often make that a distinction in our work, the difference between an I and you space, or an I and you and you and you and you space, and an I and we space. The we being something that I am part of an anchor for, as each of us is, and it surrounds and goes through us and arises between us. And that place of interbeing is the place where we can more deeply co-create.
And maybe Stephen, you also raised your hand. You want to speak up?
Oh, thank you, Thomas. Yes, it's partly a confession that I wasn't aware of a difference in how I felt between the me and the we, because by far my dominant emotion in the silence, especially one-to-one, but also in the group of four, was how uncomfortable I was. Real discomfort in the silence, and every bit of me wanted to build rapport with some words. Now, I found a positive spin on this while making a cup of tea, and I think it's that I wouldn't be feeling so uncomfortable with this, what feels an unnatural silence, if at some deep level I didn't believe that the other person or people were really present.
Meaning that their presence, the intensity of the presence was part of what made you uncomfortable?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is challenging, it's revealing in deep ways. And it is, we are meeting at, when we meet in this space, we are meeting at an existential place, not the place that we're used to relating from. Even when we're good at relationship and good at creating rapport, we're meeting in some ways before that, and we're all naked there. And that is, we become aware of that in each other's presence.
And in that way, I also would like to apologize, because there's something also on Zoom. When you put in small groups, particularly one-on-one group, you put immediately in a very intimate situation, and that also creates the insecurity of intimacy. And one has to be very careful, because in other spaces you're not as abruptly put into this intimacy. There are people who are happy to jump into this intimacy, but that's not a given. So also to acknowledge that one has to be careful with this intimacy, because it's real. I appreciate the spin that you put on it, that basically you're also acknowledging that it was the intimacy that made uncomfortable, but also to be careful in doing this, because we're exposing each other by this. And it's not, again, because it is real, it is also real intimacy, which means it's real exposure, and to carefully work with this. So in that sense, I appreciate that, and I also apologize if it maybe was too much for you to be brought into this in this abrupt way.
First, I want to say just how much I love what is happening right now, and what the two of you can put so well into words. That's really very, very yeah, it's like being home. And when we were in the meeting of four, there was at a certain point kind of question, and I put it in my words, like, what is happening here? You know, we are looking at each other, we don't know who we are, and we talk to each other, and it's intimate, and yeah. And in that moment came to my mind, like this is called Zoom, and it's really zooming in into this moment with these people. And I guess we all have more or less a knowing and also an experience of the oneness of who we are. And I could in that moment feel how my thinking mind couldn't wrap around this, like what I see on the screen, and feeling how real this is. And I felt this is actually always like this, when I think of my loved ones, when I think of anybody in this world or anything, it's in that moment that it's becoming real within myself. And yeah, there's just a lot of gratitude right now. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Maggie. It is real.
I would, sorry, I would like to add on to that with that idea of being real and realness. It's something I just understood now in this meeting. With Zoom, we have the option to have virtual backgrounds. And I realized whenever I was in a meeting and somebody had a virtual background, I felt a sense of disconnect and a sense of almost being betrayed. Because part of that reality that we share is also the space, and it's not just the between us space, but also what's behind me and what's surrounding me. And yeah, I couldn't put my finger on that before, why I felt this disconnect when, I mean, people have the freedom to choose whatever background they want, but still there was this, there's something that was a bit difficult for me to handle. And now I can understand it better. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we recommend not doing that for this program. And because it is an invitation into one's life, oneself, one's life, one's context. And that's part of where for those of us like we are, who work closely with other human beings, not falsifying that experience is important. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't ever use it, but it's also that to be aware that it makes a difference in consciousness if I am in my space and meeting you in yours.
Just a very simple fact that allowing to see each other's background, which is usually our private background, is a form of vulnerability. And I think that's what you're referring to, Eva. To allow each other to be as vulnerable, that's exactly what vulnerability does. It opens up. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that you never should do that, but just to be aware of it, what it does, to allow this vulnerability to be seen in your background.
Right. And it's, and I mean, some people have like a cloth behind, or some movable wall. I don't know the English word for that. And even that is different, but it feels more sincere. Mm-hmm. It has more that feeling of, okay, I didn't clean up my room behind me and I don't want to share that untidiness with you. And so that's why I do this. Whereas in this virtual screen, it's like there's no clue what's behind. And that's, it's interesting.
May I build on?
In fact, we have some people who raised their hand, which I don't want to miss out. And I would like to ask Luke, because he already raised his hand for quite a while, if he wants to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. In the group meeting, I was very much aware of when people came forward and talked and how I would respond, and that would kind of bring me into human communication. and when they sat back, how there was a sense of yeah, I'll just let them sit back, and that change. But my most strong thing is that when I see 25 people in front of me, I go freak out. It's like too much, and I'm running away. And I notice that as my default setting with people is that there's a place in me that I want to actually not be intimate and want to disappear. And so I have to kind of push myself, recognize that, to actually do more of coming forward. But my actual point is, when I look at the camera, and I'm looking at the camera now, it looks like I'm looking at you. But when I look at you, it looks like I'm not looking at you, because I'm looking at you, but I'm not looking at the camera. So there's a disconnect between how I engage, and I know I can be in the whole space and engage, and I can close my eyes and engage, but the eyes are, for me, are really important. How do you work with looking at the camera to talk to somebody and really be present with them, or how you look at their face and see their response on the screen? So that's the kind of, maybe a technical thing, but that's what I'm interested in with Zoom.
I think it's a good question, because it's something that we have to deal with, because there's a difference between real meetings that are when you look eye to eye in a real meeting, you look eye to eye. But when I look into your eyes, as I'm doing right now, where you see that I'm looking slightly below you, because I'm not looking now. I'm looking into the camera, but in the camera I don't see you. So there's
exactly.
So there's the way I do this, and I think we all have to find our ways, is to focus on seeing you and being aware that you see me, and that you are aware that I look at you, even if my eyes are not meeting your eyes in that way the most time. Because I find being exposed to each other's faces and knowing that you see me and knowing that I see you helps to bridge this. It is a technical reality that is just how it is, and there's one thing I think which is definitely disadvantage, because it's not the same like I do. It's not the same thing. It is just not the same thing.
Sure.
But there is something where I see you right now, and it looks like you're not looking into my eye because you're looking slightly bit, but I'm aware that you see me.
Yeah.
And this awareness that you see me reaches me. And I think that's something that we also can cultivate together, and that's the way I would go with this.
Can I just add to that just quickly? I was in a Zoom meeting with somebody, and they made a deliberate point of maybe at the end of a sentence or occasionally just changing their view towards the camera. And it really made me feel like they were engaging much, much more. And I knew at that time they couldn't see my reaction. It gave me the feeling that they were kind of like there for me. And it was really useful.
Yeah.
I think there's also some computers have the camera on the side or at the bottom, and it's when you're buying a new laptop, try to get your camera as much in the center as possible, because that can be really very strange, and it's something that makes it even more, feels more of a barrier. But I think there's also a way of, and people are talking about soft eyes, but in some ways it's a certain way that one is experiencing holding, not looking, but holding, that is from a deeper place in the body, and that is not so eye dependent. And I think that space of open holding is communicated in a way regardless of where one is looking per se.
In that sense, what we heard before from Gestalt therapy, they have this soft view where you don't focus. In fact, I do find it helpful, particularly when we have 25 people on the screen, to not look where I'm looking right now, but to have a soft view and just have an inner soft awareness. Yes, we are here. That's part of why appreciating this inner V-space, the inner awareness of this V-space, allows us to relate to each other in this different way. And I'm not so much dependent where my eye is focusing on. And again, we all in the learning process how to do this. But I find the inner awareness and attention to hold this space as a real we space makes a powerful difference. And it is not dependent necessarily where I look. It's dependent where my inner awareness goes. And to be exposed to this we space and allow to be exposed really changes the atmosphere.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I want to build on what Maggie said. Maggie expressed her gratitude and this feeling of oneness that immediately triggered me. And I said, okay, that's the interbeing where I want to be. And there's a kind of a longing that the people with who I met already now is kind of, I want to see you, I want to speak to you further. So it's also creating a curiosity and a longing to meet them even after this meeting. So it immediately gives an impulse to, wow, beautiful people. I want to meet you again. I want to speak to you. I want to share. I want to meet you really. I want to know what you're doing. So that's that longing which comes along with the words they speak, and like you speaking about interbeing, I want to be there. Yes, it's a longing. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And the longing is a motivation, and the longing is a direction.
Yeah.
Longing, the longing is also the thing, meaning that one doesn't want the longing to go away.
No.
It's longing that you fulfill, and then you move on. Like, I'm longing for this. I'm longing for a strawberry. I can't wait to taste a strawberry.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It is in itself a way that the we space, that this collective interbeing dimension works with each of us and pulls us together, pulls us further, gives us, guides us into more depth, more engagement, more co-creation.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. And also thanking for pointing out the interbeing, because this is important for us, because particular in online meetings, it makes a huge difference if the space that we are holding together is fragmenting or not. If I'm just focusing on particular use or just me, there is a fragmentation in this space. That isn't a fragmentation in how I'm aware of this. But if I'm aware that there's a wholeness in this meeting, there's a wholeness of us, which is this we space. And if you're together in experiencing and in acknowledging the wholeness of this we space, this interbeing, there's a synergy between us unfolding that is not possible to unfold if this wholeness is not acknowledged. So it makes a difference to really bring this interbeing into our shared awareness, because it's also part of our experience. When we do this to some degree, if there's a critical mass of us that is acknowledging that this is not just a fragmented meeting, one, but there's a whole space that has a whole gestalt, then we can move in this gestalt, and this gestalt can move us. So part of the miracle, part of the magic to allow this we space to come to its own is to appreciating the wholeness of the gestalt that we are meeting in. And part of what we try to do right now, just by pointing it out and hearing from you, to see how this is something that we can support with our consciousness, first by being aware of it, and second by starting to find ways how we can care for it so that it can bloom between us.
And a meta comment from that about the structure, we're focusing today on your developing the capacity to sense and perceive into the we space, the we in which we are, this wholeness, because it's not simply us as individuals, it's actually a wholeness that encompasses all of us. And tomorrow we're going to focus more on working with that wholeness in a group. But the first step is how do I align with that? How do I open myself to be able to connect? To be able to connect. And I see we have hands up, and I saw, Hardo, that you raised your hand like this, but we have Kuyen, Martin, Dita, and Karen. And I think that if we could, yeah, it'd be great to hear from each person, and also Hardo will bring you in too. Kuyen, do you want? Yeah.
Thank you. A few things that is coming up for me is how much the eye contact, as you said, for me doesn't matter as much because my eyes get tired, and I imagine many of us do. And how I notice myself speaking a lot from a soft belly, and I found that helpful even right now as I'm speaking. So that is an observation that I've noticed, because somehow the eye contact feel draining for me this day, and maybe in this moment only, but I feel that when I can speak from a soft belly, that really helps with my own landing into that interbeing space.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Kuyen. I think also the eyes are so connected with our mental capacities, our pure mental cognition, our conceptual reality. I mean, all of so much of the metaphors that we use that are about ideas or about seeing and so forth. And to be able to embrace this space, it does require us to drop into ourselves in a deeper and wider way, and relate from there. And then it does make us less I dependent, and also less me dependent at the same time.
Yeah, and when you said, I'm also reminded of our group where I was sharing that the me and the we, sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. And I found that there's some sense, some state of being that feels more like home. That feels more like home. And some, you say oneness and then longing for that, and to me there was a home and away from home sense. That was I didn't know what is we and what is me, but I was very clear what is home and what's away.
That's nice.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Martin.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So in the very beginning, you mentioned that, and I loved it really much, that our mission is to bring humanity to the tech world, as you said. I personally work together with IT people, which are maybe not so familiar with awareness and consciousness and things like that. And I would like to thank Eva for bringing up that point with the background, because you mentioned that if I'm sharing, it's a kind of intimacy I share now. And you brought me to the point that I could invite them to choose a background in Zoom, to have a little bit more safe space, yeah, and then stepwise open it, and that was really. I'm looking for how we bring all these beautiful things we learn from you, how to bring this to the to the real world, yeah, which is my IT department and so on, and this was really helpful. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you so much, Martin.
Okay. Actually, Karen?
Thank you. I wanted to tell you, I went away into the break feeling so excited because we went beyond the words into our senses, and I feel like it's opening up. It's also a journey of using other senses, as you talked about with the eyes. I mean, I find if I use Zoom a lot, my throat hurts by the end of the day, which is wild because it's not that I don't talk normally. And I'm finding that in this conversation that we're having, I'm learning to tune into the other senses. And the reason I wanted to share was in the break, I went onto Facebook to look at my timeline to have a break. And this quote was on my Facebook page from 2 years ago. There's a photo of a rose in my garden, and I wrote this quote from Ingrid Madoff. And it says, "God spoke to me today in flowers, and I, who was waiting on words, almost missed the conversation."
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
I feel it sums up what I'm going through here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's something, Karen, which I also more and more start to appreciate, how particular online meetings like Zoom meetings are not about technology. They're different than Facebook. We're using technology, but these meetings are about us. And and to also accommodate ourselves to that this is not about technology. It's not the usual. We're doing it with computer, but it's not our usual computer interaction. It is about a human coming together with all our senses. That of course works differently. I'm not denying the fact that this is on screen, but we are here, and the energy in my body, my cells, everything is here and is in resonance. And to use your quote to not miss that, to just not miss that. So thank you for that.
Yes, somebody's just put, will I share the quote? I'll put it onto the chat later.
Okay, great. And Hardo, please.
Yes, thank you. At first, I have a technical question because I think I don't. Is there a button or so to make, just not to raise my hand, just to there's a button for doing that?
Yes, when you go down, you have this button called participants
At the bottom of your screen.
Bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Move your cursor and it will.
Okay, tiny my participant. Yeah.
And then on your right, on the lower end, you have different icons like yes, no, goes lower, and there's one. It's called raise your hand.
When the list of people of participants
underneath the list of people.
Yeah. Okay.
Raise your hand, and this is the way how you with the computer can raise your hands.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, gotcha. You put your hand up.
Yeah, as we saw.
Thank you.
So it worked. Yes.
So I want to share an experience I had in the group. So because I could very well feel myself, and then open to the group. In a way, I could feel the group, or I believed, or in a way I could, but it was very much in my mind, or in my, yes, also in my consciousness, but in my mind. And then I remembered the experience with the one-to-one thing, and then I went to every person in a way and experienced or tried to experience that I'm looking at the screen and the other person is looking from the other side at the screen, but we are both sitting in a room. And so I could feel sitting in the same shared space and just using the screen to remember that I'm together with that person, but not so looking through the screen, but knowing, yes, we are sitting in a room, in a real, yes, field is a better word maybe. And then I did it with the other three persons. And at that moment I could feel my body. So it was not only in my mind, I opened my heart and I could feel, wow, I'm really sitting in the same field with everybody.
Right.
That was, yes, very helpful for me to let go of the screen and just to use it some moment to remember. So yeah, that was a very helpful experience to share shared room with more people than one. So.
Yeah. No, you expressed it perfectly. So thank you for sharing this for us, because this is exactly what makes a difference. Because this is not a mental experience. It can be something like a mental experience. It is an embodied realization that in some miraculous way we are sharing one space here. It's not a physical space, but there is a togetherness, and there's an energetic togetherness that can be sensed with our senses, our embodied senses. And as soon as this opens up, the space between really opens up in a way that it would not do otherwise.
And we often call the space between the field.
Yeah.
You know, it is a field of our collective awareness. That's what interbeing is in many ways, is a shared, or the way we see it, is it's a shared field of presence, that collectively we are present in the same space, whatever that is. It's not a physical space, as you were saying, but the physicality of it is the field. It awakens something in us that is embodied.
And what you are describing is exactly what we tried to say before when we mentioned breaking the hypnosis of the computer. Because all of a sudden, you I don't know if you're aware, but you changed your language from looking at the screen to looking through the screen. And I think that's a very appropriate change of language, because it doesn't stop at the screen. When I see you, Harder, right now, I'm not looking at my screen. I'm looking, at least with my inner eye, through the screen, seeing, this is Hardo. It's great to meet you. And it's great to be in your presence. And when I'm inwardly making this movement, I don't care about the screen. I care about the fact that I'm in one space with Hardo, and appreciate the reality of this, even though it's supported by technology. But that's really secondary.
Yes, I tried this to looking through the screen, and it was possible also with the one-to-one group, but with the more persons, it was more difficult. So I could do it more in the way I described, because it made me the screens was going littler and littler in a way.
Thinner and thinner.
Yeah, also.
That's why we started with the one-on-one, because that makes it accessible. And it's definitely more challenging when there are 24 little squares on the screen, and you are aware that even more screens, because then it easily becomes an abstraction in your mind, and not the relational sphere, the relational field that we are really in, and that we really can work with.
And over these 4 days, we're going to really try to strengthen the muscle to move from the one-on-one and be able to hold this, and be able to have this shared sense of presence, this interbeing become more and more robust for us.
In fact, that's exactly what we also do in our trainings: strengthen this muscle to to make it more accessible, that this space opens up.
Because as you will find, and when we're going to end very soon, and I welcome you to take this back into your life, into your face-to-face conversations and engagements, because this dimension is always present. It's just that with Zoom, because our physical cues and so forth are not there, it becomes more palpable. But this dimension of being present to another, to being in a shared presence, is a deeper dimension of human being. And I think if we have one last comment. Rosalie, thank you, Hardo.
I actually clicked hand up by accident.
Okay.
So, and I haven't got anything to say other than thank you so much to you and everybody. Thank you.
Okay. And we've come to the end of our time together. But instead of just turning off and flicking everybody disappearing, we would like to give you the option of either hanging out here like you would after a meeting, after a real physical meeting, that you don't just all of a sudden vanish at the end of the last agenda item. So you can either stay here in the main room and just chat for a little bit and meet each other, and we will also open the breakout groups that you were in, so that if you want to talk to them, like Peter Paul, like you said, if you want to talk a little more, you can go back and meet those people again.
And you also can go back and forth if you like. So you can go into your breakout group, see if somebody's there, hang out. And if you want to come back in the main group, you just come back in the main group. And if you just want to make a break right now, just also make a break right now. But feel free to, if you want to hang out a little more here in the main room, or if you want to hang out in your breakout room, there's space for that. We leave both rooms open. So we will open the rooms, and you can choose to either join the breakout room or just stay here.
Or go on with your day.
Or just go on with your day. And thank you very much for joining us for this first session.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mm.
Bye-bye.